Good morning. I'm Alan Wernick. I'm the director of CUNY Citizenship Now. I want to thank you all for coming. We're looking forward to having a really great training today. You know that for the last 15 years, CUNY and the Daily News have partnered in a week-long call-in where we answer people's questions. But this year we decided to forego the call-in and may come back later, another year. But what's going on, if those of you who don't know, there's tremendous delays now in the application system for people applying to become U.S. citizens. You know, some people would say it's purposeful because the administration doesn't want people to become citizens. Some people would say no, there's a lot of people applying and immigration is just having trouble getting their act together. But for whatever reason, a lot of people want to become citizens and it's taking them a long time. People want to vote in 2020. And people need to get started now. So what we've decided to do at Citizenship Now and the Daily News is to put more energy, more resources, more time into helping more people apply to become U.S. citizens. So as you know, on June 30th, we're going to have a Citizenship Day and an immigration fair. We are going to be providing information to people who are immigrants, but we hope to help more people on one day apply for citizenship than any organization has ever done in the history of New York City. And you're going to be part of that. For those of you who have heard me give this rap before, I apologize, but I want to tell you that one of the things I'm most proud of in my 20 years of working with CUNY Citizenship Now is the work we have done in developing the CUNY Volunteer Corps, Citizenship Corps, because it's because of you that we're able to provide such high quality service at such low cost and in a way that is fun for you, fun for the participants. It gives them confidence. Our mission, our goal, our values are that somebody who is low income and comes to us for free service should get the same quality of service as somebody who's paying one of the best immigration lawyers in New York City, and we think we meet that goal, and it's because of you and your help that we do that, so let's have an applause for all of you. We'll be thanking our various sponsors throughout the day, but of course I want to mention the New York Daily News. As you know, I write for the paper twice a week. Read it online so I get those click-throughs, you know, so they know that I'm being read. It always helps, but you can read it online. I'm usually Tuesdays and Fridays, but you have to search for me, Wernick, and I'll come up there and you can read my columns. But I want to thank the Daily News. They have been our partners for now going into our 16th year. And of course, we wouldn't be doing it, such a grand event without their support. And you're going to be seeing their marketing of our efforts in the coming days. Also, I want to make special thanks to John Jay College. We'll be thanking them more later. You'll be hearing from a representative, but John Jay College has been our home the last few years, and it's terrific. The staff here are wonderful. You can see it, right? I mean, those of you who had breakfast, you see how well it works. You see what a great space we're in, and it's just, we wouldn't be able to do it. Before I introduce our morning speakers, I want to give a special thanks to Monique Francis. Monique here, our Deputy Director. So Monique basically runs Citizenship Now. You know, I'm like Colonel Sanders. You know, they have me standing outside waving my hand, you know. You know, Colonel Sanders is dead. He's still selling chicken. So, you know, I'm still selling the chicken. I gave her the recipe, and she's cooking it up. And I also want a special thanks to Ebony Mason, who's our event coordinator. Is Ebony in the room? I don't know if she's here, but let's see. Ebony's doing a terrific job. She's responsible for all the good that goes on today and on June 30th. So our first speaker, oh, and of course I want to also thank Luis Paulino, our new volunteer coordinator. Please stand up. So he's the person you need to chat up during the day, tell him what's good about it, tell him if there's something you're not happy with, he's the one to go to, all right? So our first speaker this morning is Laura Jin. Laura is representing John Jay. You know, John Jay is the leading criminal justice educational institution in the country. It always makes me very proud to come here. You know, back in the day when I first started working at CUNY, people thought we saw this as a cop school. You know, you want to be a cop, you want to get educated, you go to John Jay. But in the last 10, 15 years, it's really expanded beyond that. It's really become a center for justice, research, not just criminal justice, but all areas of justice. It is not just a place where people get trained to be police officers, though that's still an important part of their work, but the research that is done here and support they give, particularly for the immigrant community, is really outstanding. Laura is the Vice President for Policy and Strategic Initiatives, and Laura, please.
Thanks, Alan, and good morning, everyone. I just want to extend a very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of President Carol Mason and the entire John Jay community. We are so proud to host this event and partner with CUNY Citizenship Now. It's so inspiring to see a room full of volunteers who are taking time out of busy lives to be here today to learn something new and give back to your community. We have an extremely strong commitment here to justice in all its dimensions and exploring that issue. We've a strong commitment to immigrant students and all of our students here. As Alan mentioned, we were proud to host an announcement when the state of New York announced is suing the federal government over the administration's DACA decision back in September. We are excited to be launching a brand new Immigrant Student Success Center here in the fall that will be dedicated to supporting our immigrant students on campus and all types of immigration status. And we're very thrilled to be working again here today and then the end of this month with CUNY Citizenship Now for this important training and public service day. Our mission here, as Alan alluded to, is we are a college of criminal justice, but we aim to educate our students to be fierce advocates for justice. And many of you may have noticed that as you walked in our halls today. You all are becoming fierce advocates today. You embody that by your commitment, by taking the time, by learning today, and coming back to serve your community and support their success. So thank you for being here, and thanks for the chance to welcome you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, one of the reasons, besides our terrific staff and our great volunteers, one of the reasons that CUNY Citizenship Now is able to provide those high-quality services, those services that are just as good as you would get from an experienced and high-quality immigration lawyer, is because the support we get from the City University of New York. A substantial part of our budget, unlike most not-for-profits, comes from the government, comes from your taxes. And it comes out of the budget of the City University of New York. There's no program in the country that even comes close to providing services for our students and for the immigrant community as CUNY Citizenship Now. So the support of the university is key to our success. And to represent the university today, we have Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Chris Rosa. Chris has been a friend of Citizenship Now for many, many years. He's always been supportive. We've worked closely with some of the groups that he supports and manages. So he's been a friend of ours for, like I said, many, many years, and we're just so thrilled to have him being here to represent the university. So Chris, thank you so much.
Thank you, Alan. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's an honor to be Alan's friend. Always has been, and I'm grateful for his friendship. And it's really an honor for me to be here this morning. I bring you greetings from our interim chancellor, Dr. Vita Rabinowitz. She cherishes Citizenship Now and your role in it, and she wishes that she could be here this evening. This is her first week on the job, and this morning she's meeting with the chairman of our Board of Trustees and all of the college presidents to talk about transition and leadership in our university. And so she sends her warmest regards and thanks you for your leadership on behalf of all New Yorkers and their commitment to a path to citizenship. One of the things that I'm supposed to say as we embrace our new brand strategy here at CUNY is that we're very proud that at CUNY we are the world's greatest urban university. And that doesn't sit as comfortably with all members of our university community as it might, largely because the world has a lot of great urban universities. And we certainly think that we belong in that conversation. But when you stake the claim to being the world's greatest urban university, you have to say it in ways that are authentic and that reflect our experiences in higher education in one of certainly the world's great cities. And so with my team in the Division of Student Affairs, we've taken that as an aspirational goal and as a real challenge to find ways in which the work we do on behalf of students deserves mention among the world's greatest practices, among urban universities. And in doing that, we look around our university for examples of work which is unequivocally the world's greatest. And our list always begins with the work of CUNY Citizenship Now. Because of all of you, we are undoubtedly the world's greatest urban university when it comes to being a center for New Yorkers who are on a path to citizenship. I think the numbers certainly bear that out. Over the course of the history of Citizenship Now, more than 100,000 New Yorkers have been placed on a path to citizenship, and that is humbling. That is just a remarkable, remarkable imprint that Citizenship Now, through the help of advocates like you, have made on the lifeblood of our city. You've provided even more than 120,000 consultations, providing high-level quality guidance to people who are exploring a path to the American dream, to citizenship. And that's really a sacred trust and a sacred responsibility. And I'm humbled by being in a room full of people who have really taken that on. But the numbers don't tell the whole story. When you aspire to be the world's greatest at anything, and particularly in an urban university, it has to resonate deeply within your core and with your core values. And we are so proud that because of the imprint that Citizenship Now has left on our university, that we regard immigration and immigrant students and the immigrant student experience as very much a part of our core, very much a part of our identity as who we are as a university. And in many respects, that comes because of Citizenship Now and because of all of you that serve as a beacon that light the way and connect us with who we are at our core, with the value that we most cherish. And in terms of validating that experience, I always think of three distinct experiences that I and members of the university get to experience because of Citizenship Now. One is late-night phone calls with Alan Wernick from me and members of our faculty who have members of our university community who are in crisis. Students who have been picked up by ICE agents and are utterly terrified and don't know where to turn. And we know that because we have Citizenship Now, there's always someone on the end of that phone who will help them to find a path and lead them to believe that they're not alone in their fight for justice. And that is the most elemental form of validation that you can have at a university in terms of your commitment to the right to a path to citizenship. I experienced it when Alan invited me to participate in a swearing-in ceremony at Queensborough Community College, where there was a class of individuals who were served by Citizenship Now, who ultimately found the path to citizenship and were sworn in at one of our Beacon campuses. And it was one of the greatest moments of my CUNY life, to have the opportunity to see the joy on the faces of people who became citizens largely because of their connection to Citizenship Now, and that occurred on one of our CUNY campuses. It's the ultimate validation of the role that Citizenship Now plays and citizenship in the life of our great university. And finally, just being present at the call-ins, seeing volunteers like all of you who give so totally of themselves to create a path to citizenship for people who are hungering for it and who are longing for it. That is the most humbling validation of our effort to become the world's greatest that I've ever encountered. So I applaud you. I'm grateful for your partnership. It's through great partners like you that I can feel unabashedly that we are certainly the world's greatest urban university, and that is only because of our relationship to the world's greatest partners and advocates, and that's all of you. So thank you for all of you do. Look forward to seeing you on the 30th, and learn a lot today. We're counting on you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Did you see, by the way, no notes. You saw that? No uhs, I mean. No notes. I don't know how he does that. But anyway, very impressive. Thank you so much. Like I said, Chris has been a great friend of ours in the central office and central administration. And I did meet with our interim chancellor. She does regret not being able to be here today. She will be here on the 30th. There are those who would like to meet her. Every year that we've done these trainings for the last number of years, we give an award to an individual or an institution who has done two things: been key or made an important contribution to CUNY Citizenship Now, and who have contributed to the welfare and benefit of the immigrant community in New York City. And a number of organizations, individuals have been honored. And this year we decided, what more fitting honor than to honor the CUNY Volunteer Corps. Because as I said, the reason that all over America people know about Citizenship Now and the great work we do, and the reason we're able to do the high quality, high volume service that we provide is because of Citizenship Corps. So to take care of the award, I invite Luis Paulino to the podium, right? Oh, I'm sorry. And Tamara Bloom, our managing attorney. I have my notes, it's right here. I apologize, Tamara. Well, Luis, I already introduced. He is responsible for organizing the Corps. Tamara is the person who ensures that our services at our event, like on the 30th, and our twice-a-month community events are of the highest quality. She works on the training materials and ensures that you and the other people who participate are well trained and provide high-quality service. So thank you both very much.
Thank you. So yes, as Alan has previously mentioned, I am Luis Paulino, the Volunteer Engagement Coordinator for the organization.
I'm Tamara Bloom, the Managing Attorney for Community Events. Good morning once again.
Now, this year we are honoring you, members of the CUNY Citizenship Now Volunteer Corps, for your dedication, for your service to the organization, for your service to the immigrants of New York City, as well as for being the largest and most diverse members of the Citizenship Now team. This award has been given to community activists, has been given to leaders in the fields of immigration law, as well as to members of the private sector and attorneys of the largest immigration law firm in the world. This year, however, we are circling back to highlight and award you all, members of our CUNY Citizenship Now Volunteer Corps. We have, with your help, we have created a video that highlights the accomplishments of our Volunteer Corps. I hope you guys enjoy.
I think I'm a better person because of the work I do.
Those newcomers come around again and again.
You get a lot of people in the community that you realize need help and assistance.
My name is Sean Rahman.
My name is Ariana Sanchez.
My name is Anne-Marie McNamee.
My name is Luis Paulino.
My name is Nema Pena.
My name is Evans J. LeGros.
When I was applying for the New York State Bar, I needed a place to do my 50 pro bono hours. And CUNY Citizenship Now provided the best opportunity to do that.
The work that CUNY Citizenship does is really life-changing. I think it helps me help my own community out.
It is the thing that I do in my professional life that just brings me great joy, great inner peace, and fulfillment.
My life somewhat changed while I started participating with CUNY Citizenship, because when I came here, often people used to approach me saying, oh, you're not from here, go back to your country. And then when I started being engaged with CUNY Citizenship, I realized that there are other people who may go through the same issues I went, and helping them is something that brings that compassion in my life, and knowing that I help someone is amazing feeling.
The place that we really, really see what a difference we're making in the community and our participants is at our events. That's where you really get a real great indicator of how our services are doing to the community.
My favorite situation is when a first-generation American comes in with their parents that weren't born there. They're so eager to have their parents become U.S. citizens, and I just see like the dynamics between parent and child, and how that American child is helping their parent at any age, and it's just a great feeling. It's a great thing to see.
You really come away at the end of these events with a sense of accomplishment.
You become part of this network where there's other people that think just like you and they're the same goals. So I'm really thankful for everyone that I meet. I'm really thankful that there's people that also enjoy doing the work without not necessarily doing anything in return. If this is how people continue to think, our world could be a different place.
This is the single best volunteer experience that I've ever had, because I get to help people in my community, the people that I grew up around, the people that remind me of my grandma and my aunts and my uncles, and
I personally do it in honor of the memory of my grandmother, who was an immigrant from Lithuania in the 1950s. It really means a lot to me that I can now use the benefits I had from her going through the process to help other people reach their dreams of also becoming American citizens.
You don't really get to see how many people need this assistance until you get here and volunteer and meet all the different applicants, and all of them have different stories with the main goal to become U.S. citizens.
The way the organization runs is that they put people based on their level of understanding. They have the different stages of who's going to be a screener, who's going to guide people throughout, and who does the applications, and who does the photographs, and everyone, when you put it all together, it's just one huge machine.
One of the things I'm most proud of at Citizenship Now is our creation of our New York City CUNY Volunteer Corps, because nothing is more satisfying than to be able to see people from the community helping people from their own community on the path to U.S. citizenship.
What I love the most about the work that CUNY Citizenship Now does, and as a volunteer, what I saw us doing was how we were able to come together and make a positive impact. How everyone who came with fear was leaving with smiles, and I think that was and has been the most gratifying experience and most gratifying gift that I have received, or that I received and continue receiving as a volunteer, as a member of the team, and I hope to continue experiencing in the future. I hope you guys enjoy the video. The video hopefully will be displayed in our website. It's definitely going to be up in our different social media networks. But now, I would like for every member of the volunteer corps, including those who are in the other side of the screen, to please stand up so that we can give you all a well-deserved round of applause. Thank you.
To accept the award on behalf of the Volunteer Corps, we're going to highlight the immense contributions of 3 individuals who have really made a stellar contribution to the Volunteer Corps and to the work of CUNY Citizenship Now. And I have to say, I got to watch everybody's faces during the presentation of the award, and it was really heartwarming to, of the video, it was really heartwarming to see the response from everyone and the level of warmth that we all have for the work that we do together. Over the last 3 years alone, the 3 volunteers who are accepting the award on behalf of the Volunteer Corps have attended a combined total of 90 events. That's a lot of time and a lot of work helping the immigrants of New York. To accept the award on behalf of the Volunteer Corps, please join us to honor these 3 role models of community service. The first is Noreen Noel. Please come up. Noreen has been a member of the Volunteer Corps since 2009. She spent the early part of her life in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and she came to the U.S. in the early 1980s. She has been living in New York ever since. Her strong work ethic has created many opportunities for her. She currently works as an administrator and a first responder in the Mount Sinai Medical Center Rape Crisis and Domestic Violence Program. She in her work there, also recruits and screens volunteers for her program. In her spare time, which is hard to believe she has any because she spends so much of her time with us, she enjoys working with her family, volunteering, and traveling, and her personal crusade is to counsel kids on the virtue of staying in school and completing their education. And in the last 3 years, Noreen has attended 25 events.
The next volunteer who is going to receive the certificate on behalf of the CUNY Citizenship Now Corps is Henry Segerman. Please welcome us. He joined the Volunteer Corps in 2014. In the last 3 years alone, Henry has attended a record number of 38 events. Yes. He was born and raised here in the Big Apple, New York City. He's had careers in both the media field and investment for 7 years now, or more. Henry has not just committed to CUNY Citizenship Now, but also to the International Rescue Committee, NALEO, Catholic Charities, and the Mayor's Office of Immigration Affairs.
And accepting the award on behalf of the Volunteer Corps is Yvette Doldrin, who's a member of the Corps since 2015. She has attended 27 events since 2015. She's a dedicated advocate. She's a small business owner. And she, too, has immigrated from Trinidad in 1981 and been in New York. She herself has gained permanent residence and later U.S. citizenship. She enjoys attending outreach events, immigration conferences and seminars, and spending time with her family. She also brought her 2 lovely kids here today. So on behalf of Citizenship Now, here's Yvette.
Good morning to our distinguished panel, guests, fellow volunteers, and my 2 children. On behalf of CUNY Citizenship Now, we would like to thank you for appreciating us and showing us, we would like, on behalf of CUNY Citizenship Now, we would like to thank you for showing us your appreciation and giving us the opportunity to assist and be part of your mission. CUNY Citizenship Now is, without bias, one of the most respected and resourceful services that provides free immigration assistance. We are proud to be part of such a dedicated community. My journey with CUNY Citizenship began over 3 years ago. While reading the daily news, as an immigrant myself, I felt inspired to assist other immigrants. I reached out via email and received a response within minutes from our former coordinator, Ms. Stina Rosenquist, whom I shall not forget. Volunteering here can be very rewarding, and fulfilling. The joy of being part of a community that is responsible for making a difference in the lives of immigrants keeps me coming back. We, the volunteers, look forward to assisting in the future. Thank you.
And now we're going to turn it over to our communications manager, Sophia, so that you can see someone who, with your help, we have assisted. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Immigrant Heritage Month. Did you know June is Immigrant Heritage Month? Thanks for joining us here, and also thanks to those who are joining us in the live stream video. Once again, I have the opportunity to introduce to you an immigrant whose life you transformed through your volunteer service. Unfortunately, George and his wife Maria, who are noted in the program, could not join us today, but they would have welcomed the opportunity to personally thank you for your help during last year's Citizenship Day. We do have, however, we have Rosa Campos here with us today. She and her husband of 45 years, Francisco Campos, came to our Citizenship Day last year and completed their citizenship applications with your help. So let us hear from Rosa. She's going to speak in Spanish, and I'm going to do the translation for her.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Rosa Campos, soy de Nicaragua y tengo 66 años y estoy en este país hace 24 años.
My name is Rosa Campos. I am from Nicaragua. I am 66 years old and I have been in this country for 24 years.
Mi esposo y yo obtuvimos la Green Card en el año 2001 por medio de la ley NACARA que favorecía a los cubanos y nicaragüenses.
My husband and I got our green cards in 2001 through NACARA, which helped Cubans and Nicaraguans.
Como ustedes saben, la mayoría de los residentes de esta gran nación puede aplicar a la ciudadanía después de 5 años de haber obtenido la Green Card. Pero mi esposo y yo fuimos posponiendo aplicar por algunas razones, muchas veces injustificadas. Por ejemplo, no sé inglés, o porque pensábamos no nos íbamos a quedar en Estados Unidos, y así se nos fueron los años.
As you know, the majority of residents of this great nation can apply to obtain their citizenship after 5 years of getting their green card. But my husband and I postponed applying for reasons sometimes not justified, like I don't know English, or because we thought we would not remain in the United States. That's how years passed.
En nuestro caso, queríamos regresar a Nicaragua y reunirnos con nuestros 4 hijos, pero era siempre solo planes, hasta que hace cerca de 8 años decidí aplicar para la ciudadanía. Sin embargo, no pasé el examen y no quise aplicar una vez más. El año pasado, mientras miraba las noticias en el Canal 41, escuché el anuncio de Ciudadanía Ya, y bueno, dije, ahora es cuando.
We wanted to return to Nicaragua to go back to our 4 children, but these were always just plans until about 8 years ago when I decided to apply for citizenship. However, I did not pass the citizenship test, and I did not want to apply again. Last year, watching the news on Channel 41, I heard the announcement about Citizenship Now, and I said, now is the time.
Llamé y me atendieron muy amablemente ahí y comencé el camino a la ciudadanía. Ahora voy a ejercer mi derecho al voto.
I called and they were very kind to me, and there my path to citizenship started. Now I'm going to exercise my right to vote.
Mi esposo también envió su aplicación y está esperando solamente la cita para juramentar. Tener la ciudadanía es un privilegio que me da la oportunidad de solicitar la residencia para alguno de nuestros hijos y la posibilidad de tener nietos cerca. Le doy gracias a Dios por esta nación que nos abrió las puertas.
My husband also sent his application and is now waiting for his swearing appointment. Having citizenship is a privilege that gives me the opportunity to petition for some of my children's permanent residence and the possibility to have our grandchildren near. I give God thanks for this nation that opened the doors to us.
Agradezco también a todas las personas involucradas en este servicio a la comunidad, de gran beneficio. Dios les bendiga, y a los que trabajan en CUNY y en New York Daily News que promueven este evento. Muchas gracias.
I also thank everyone involved in this service to the community, which is of great benefit. May the Lord bless you, and to those who work in CUNY and the New York Daily News who organized this event, many thanks.
Well, thank you so much. You know, we really enjoyed this early part of the program, but now we have to get to work. Hopefully it'll be work and fun at the same time. Tamara, who was introduced before, has really is an indefatigable worker at Citizenship Now and thinking through the training topics, the materials, working with the speaker. So without further ado, let's get started. Tamara, please.
Good morning again. I'm going to look up indefatigable, whatever Alan called me, make sure it's a compliment. Just kidding. Also, I wish we had a stand-up comedian at this point to warm you guys up, because we're about to get started with the heavy stuff, the learning, the law, the developments that have happened over the last year since we last met. We are so happy again that you guys can join us. I'm the managing attorney for CUNY. For the community events, one of my privileges and one of my jobs is to respond to your feedback, which we collect after every event, the emails that we send you where we ask you, what do you think about the space? What do you think about the materials? Have you attended a training? Did it help you? We read every single one of those. So after today, I encourage you to submit feedback, and I encourage you to let us know how our big training like this helps you for the event on June 30th, where, if you've never been to one of our mega events before, is an experience in and of itself. In the morning, when the room looks empty, you think, how could we possibly get enough people to fill this room? And then a couple hours later, the room is just packed with people and their families. Everybody has questions. And you think, how are we ever going to get through helping all of these people? Today, we are going to give you an opportunity to ask some questions that you may have about citizenship. We're going to talk a little bit about basic immigration law to give you a foundation for how do people get their green cards, how did people come to arrive in this place. And we're also going to talk about the N-400 form, go through it in detail. We're going to talk about event policies and procedures and some of the things that may come up at events and how to deal with them. I encourage everybody to go to the photo booth, take a picture, post it on your social media. Let people know about your experience here. Let people know the work that you do. Be proud of the service that your service to immigrants. Celebrate Immigrant Heritage Month with us. And ask us any questions that you have. Like Alan said, he's outside. And if you have questions for me, my email is luis.paulino@cuny.edu. Thank you. So let's take a look at what's in your bag. You have a program with the time for today, the information about breaks. You have a copy of the PowerPoint program. And you have a copy of an annotated N-400 form, which we're going to use later. Please follow along. You also have some index cards, which you can write down any questions. If you have questions for any of the presenters during their presentation, write them down. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If you have a question, other people have questions also. We are going to have a Q&A panel after the first two presentations. And we will be asking the questions that you present. For people at home, let me make sure I get it correct. You can send us questions via our Facebook page at Citizenship Now, or you can use our Twitter account at CUNY Citizenship. And if you post any pictures, please use hashtag Citizenship Now. One more warm-up before I turn it over to our first presenter. Go in your bag and check out the paddles. If you have been to a Citizenship Now application assistance event, raise your green paddle. Higher, please. Excellent. If you've been to a call-in as well as an application assistance event, raise your stop sign panel. A few more, excellent. And if this is your first time at a training or at an event, raise both paddles in the air. Wow, excellent. Welcome. To your left and to your right, there are probably some experienced volunteers who are happy to give you the lowdown on the events, tell you not to miss the cookies at lunch, and give you other helpful tips and pointers. Do not leave the room with those paddles, however. This is when it gets very serious. There is going to be a Citizenship Now staff member at the door checking everyone to be sure no paddles go missing, because we need those paddles, and Ebony Mason is going to have a private meeting with me if you guys don't return those paddles, and I do not need that, okay? Got stuff I got to do. Okay, so to introduce our first presenter, she's going to be talking about Immigration 101, give you a little overview so that you have a little bit of background. Her name is Paula Ferrero. She is a staff attorney with Citizenship Now. Before she was with us, she was the National Director of Immigration Programs at the International Rescue Committee, where she oversaw the delivery of immigration services in 24 cities around the country. She is also a former analyst for the USCIS Ombudsman's Office and with Homeland Security in Washington. She's worked for several different major national organizations, and she is an expert in how to naturalize green card holders around the country using group processing models like ours. So please join me to welcome Paula.
Thank you, Tamara, for the introduction. I'm very excited to be here. I've been with CUNY Citizenship Now as a staff attorney for about a year. And I've been in the same place you are, getting this training, attending the group processing events for the first time. So it's an amazing experience. My job today, as Tamara said, is to set the stage for you, give you a broad overview of what immigration is. And then my colleagues who are going to come afterwards are going to delve deeply into the form, the eligibility criteria. They're going to walk you through the process. It'll be painless. You're going to have so much fun. You're going to have tons of questions, but you're going to be hooked, and you're going to want to do it again. So you're really going to have a great time. And remember, if there are any questions, just please write them on the index cards, and I guess someone will collect them afterwards, because we're going to have a panel later on this morning. So as I said, these are our paddles. We're going to need them for some questions along the way, so keep them out. And this is me, Immigration 101. So as I mentioned, my job is to set the context for you, is to give you a general overview of what immigration is. It's also to introduce the general expectations of the day. You know, even if you've done this before, it can be a little overwhelming to sit there and think that you have to, you know, work with someone, work with a participant that you've never met before, to try to complete an application, to do it correctly, to get information from them. You know, it can be emotionally wearing, but even though it is very rewarding at the same time. So I definitely want to talk to you about that a little bit. And that is the first slide. First things first, what is my end goal? The end goal is always to provide great customer service. Believe it or not, this is a customer service job. whether we're doing screening, whether we're doing application assistance, whether we're doing checkout, or even the ushering. That's a customer service job. As you heard some of the people in the video that we saw, perhaps the way they were treated before, people weren't welcoming to them. They didn't know if they fit here. They weren't sure if they were going to live in this country permanently. But it's our job to make them feel at home, to make them feel like they're welcome, like they have a right to be here, they're lawful permanent residents. If they've been here and they're eligible, they should be able to apply and file for citizenship. And that's all our jobs, right? So be patient with the participants. Let them speak to you. Sometimes it's really embarrassing to talk about the things that have happened in your life. But sometimes they have to tell us this stuff because this is the stuff that will help us know if they're eligible for citizenship or whether they should hold off on citizenship. We wouldn't want to file for someone who's not eligible at the moment. And we want to push everyone through that we can. So, last time I was at an event about a month ago, this gentleman sat, he talked, and he was talking a lot. And I'm like, I know he's going to get to his point. I'm just going to let him talk. And towards the end, that's when he mentioned that there was, some inconvenience in his life, something that happened. And I'm like, great, now we got to it. This is what I need him to tell me. This is what I need to screen for. This is the red flag. So make them feel comfortable. Ask questions. Let them tell you their story. Remember, a participant who's at ease is one that trusts you, one that will share the important information or the information that he doesn't think it's important, but it is important, and that will produce a high-quality application. And don't think you're on your own. There are a lot of supervisors on staff. There are a lot of attorneys, CUNY attorneys on staff. And you can always raise your paddle. That's why you have it. Raise that paddle when you don't know what you're doing or you have a question. When in doubt, ask a supervisor. Always do that. So why is immigration status important? What does it determine? Depending on your immigration status, that really does depend what your benefits and rights in this country. The most vulnerable people are the people who are undocumented, who are out of status, and they're the ones who are at risk of removal or deportation in this country. But when you have some type of immigration status, you're allowed to work legally here, you're allowed to petition for family members, you can have Social Security benefits, Social Security, SSI, Medicaid, SNAP, there's a whole bunch. It opens the door for you. And ultimately, it gives you the right to vote if you're a U.S. citizen, right? So knowing the immigration status is really important. Knowing, learning, because you're going to learn this, right? You're going to learn the different categories of how people get green cards in this country. And we're going to talk about that a little later on. And for those of you who haven't seen a green card, this is a version of the green card. I've come to see that at CUNY events, we have tons of versions of green cards. We have that old version that doesn't expire, that is very flimsy, and you look at it, you're like, really? How old is this? It's like 30 years old, 30, 35 years old. This is a more modern version in the last 10 years maybe, and there's a new version that is very sleek, very high tech. It has some security features in the back, some holographic security features. So you're gonna see a whole bunch of different types of green cards. Don't get flustered when you see them. Again, if you're unsure where the information is, just raise your paddle and ask a supervisor. So these are the factors some of the factors that will determine eligibility for certain immigration status. And just remember, so we all came here, every immigrant comes here in a certain way, right? Some family member petitions for them, or they got here through employment base, but there is a story, and as I was mentioning before, you need to ask what their immigration history is, what interaction they've had with immigration officials, with law enforcement. All of that is very important. Don't assume. Sometimes you get older people, or people who are sick or frail, and you're like, nah, she's fine, she didn't do anything, she's great. No, you have to ask, believe me, we were all young once. It's really important, don't assume. There are some uncomfortable questions in the citizenship application, and my colleague is gonna go through them later on. Ask them. Doesn't matter how uncomfortable you are, just take a deep breath and slowly say them. If you have to translate them, because even in English they're very fancy, the words and the terms that they use. Just ask the questions in a simple way, but ask, don't assume, because everyone has a past, everyone has a history, and it's important for you to know it. These are some of the relevant federal agencies. These are the main ones. There are a lot more agencies that deal with immigration in the federal government. Immigration touches pretty much everything, you know, from Social Security to education to, you know, law enforcement. It touches every single aspect of our lives. But the ones that we deal with on a regular basis are these. So the big one is Department of Homeland Security, which hasn't always existed. It was put into effect through the Patriot Act. Because of 9/11, a new agency was created to guard the homeland. Basically, that's what it was. Before then, immigration enforcement, immigration benefits was divided into many different agencies. Immigration and Naturalization Service, INS, that doesn't exist anymore. People now use the term legacy INS to anything that happened before 2003. But I think as habit, we always say the service or we always say immigration. First, we start off with ICE, right? U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They're the ones that they're the ones that do all the investigations, removal, detention. They deal with those issues. USCIS, the Citizenship and Immigration Services, they're the ones that provide the benefits, so naturalization, green cards, family reunification. They're the ones that interview you at 26 Federal Plaza for your citizenship application and in other offices. And then Customs and Border Protection, CBP, those are the ones that you meet at the airport, at all ports of entry, at the northern and southern border. They're the ones that you know, will screen you and ask you at the ports of entry, where have you been? How long did you stay out? They will swipe your passport. They will swipe your green card. That's their function. So that's the DHS, right? And then Department of Justice, they handle, or under them, they have the Executive Office of Immigration Review, which is the immigration courts. EOIR, the immigration judges are housed there, the Board of Immigration Appeals, which is the appellate body of the court. They're within DOJ. And then the last one is the State Department. The most relevant for our purposes is the National Visa Center. So if you're ever petitioning for anyone, for a family member, and that family member lives abroad, you go through the NVC. It's the NVC that does all pre-processing of immigration forms, of the final forms. After the NVC finishes those forms, then they send the stuff to the consulates abroad for interview. So you might have to ask the question of, and there will be a question, have you ever been in removal proceedings? Have you ever been removed? Well, we know that's EOIR, so there might be some interaction there. So these agencies in one way or the other always touch the participants that we work with. Okay, this is our first case study. So have your panels ready, your paddles. Which federal agency will Rodney send his naturalization application to? So Rodney wants to be a U.S. citizen. He's coming to you for advice. He wants to know where to send his application. If it's USCIS, you will raise this hand. If it's paddle, and if it's EOIR, you will raise this one. So, any ideas? Are you sure? Is this your final answer? Yes? All right, all right. Let's see what the PowerPoint, because it's the PowerPoint that controls. Oh, yay! So everyone had it right. Very good, very good. Yes, USCIS is responsible for adjudicating naturalization applications, immigrant visa petitions, DACA applications, asylum and refugee application, family and employment base, and the issuance of employment authorization documents. If there is a benefit that needs to be granted, you go through USCIS. That is the place you must go through. Yes, okay. Okay, so different statuses. Remember I was telling you that that green card, no matter how old it is, has very valuable information? Well, that's the immigration statuses. Let me go really quickly to that first green card. Can you all see where it says category? Yeah, okay. You're gonna look for that. The most common categories are going to be, in the world that we live in right now, family-based, because most of our immigrants come through our family-based system. And when you're at the event, you're gonna have a package that will give all these codes. So it'll be something like IR0, P22, F2X, CR1. You know, all that stuff, believe it or not, means something. You might see some that are AS8, RE8, S12, S13. All that stuff means something. The packets, the information that we give you at the time of the event will have most of that information. Again, but if you're unsure, always ask a supervisor. Why does that make a difference? That makes a big difference because we want to make sure that people were eligible to get it at the time that they were screened for the benefit. We want to make sure that the category is in the correct, that it is the correct category. It sometimes might affect the questions that you ask, like those embarrassing questions that you want to ask later, that you have to ask later on. So all of that is connected. So when you're at the event, look for that, look for those codes, ask people if you don't know what those codes mean. So U.S. citizen, we all know who they are, right? Lawful permanent residents are LPRs, asylees or refugees. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later on. Temporary protected status is in the news. If anyone paid attention yesterday, USCIS is now allowing for re-registration for the last time for Honduras, and I believe last week is for Nepal. They have a short amount of time to re-register for benefits, so please, if you know anyone from these countries, get them to re-register soon. Non-immigrant status, DACA, which we are all familiar with as well because they're in the news fighting for their rights to continue, to continue being here in this country, and then undocumented folk as well. And we'll go more deep into them. So, U.S. citizens. If you're born here, you're a U.S. citizen, which is awesome, right? Sometimes you can become a U.S. citizen if your parent is a U.S. citizen. Even if you're born abroad, you sometimes have a right to that. That's great. We screen for that. We screen for that at the events in our offices as well, and once in a while we'll find people like that, and it's great. You can also become a citizen if you're living here as a lawful permanent resident under the legal and physical custody of your U.S. citizen parent. That's awesome. We do a lot of those as well. And sometimes you may see them at the event. So there's a question of, are your parents citizens? Were your parents married at the time that you were born? Those are screening questions because sometimes people are already U.S. citizens and don't even realize it. And so if that's the case, we don't have to file a naturalization form. There's another process for them. So those are really important questions. And then most grown-ups, most adults who come here as lawful permanent residents will have to become citizens through naturalization, which is where we help in, which is where you guys are helping. And you know, it's a great process for the gentleman that was here earlier saying that he went to a swearing-in ceremony. It is the most beautiful thing to see people being sworn in as U.S. citizens. I also kind of like when the kids have their own little ceremony. USCIS will do ceremonies for minor children who have derived citizenship from their parents, and it's really sweet. They have balloons. It's really nice. That's a lovely event as well, seeing people become citizens. So green card holders. As I've said before, there are many categories to having a green card here. These are just some of them. And then there are subcategories within them, right? Yeah. So these are most of the categories. These are the 4 basic reasons that you try to get a green card, either through a family-based petition, through employment, because of the skills or knowledge that you have, humanitarian, so those would be like the asylees, the refugees, the VAWA people, and then through lottery. You'll meet people at the event who got it through the lottery. So the diversity visa lottery It is literally that, a lottery. You sign up online once a year. Randomly, people are picked. They get the opportunity to apply for a green card. And if they're able to finish processing within a short amount of time, they can become lawful permanent residents. It's a way for us, for this country, to ensure that countries that do not get a lot of visas can come. So it really is a diversity visa. It's a really good hurdles, right? The barriers. If you come here unlawfully, if you've accumulated too much time out of status or too much time unlawfully, that's a hurdle. If you have worked unlawfully, if you have worked without a work permit, that's not good either. Sometimes it has repercussions. And then criminal activities, contact with the law, arrests, convictions. Don't assume, though, that because you have one of these barriers, you're permanently ineligible to become a green card holder. Sometimes there are pardons, and there's so many pardons, so many waivers, and the eligibility criteria are different for them that that would be like a whole different session. But if someone has said to you, one of these things, just get expert opinion and see if those are barriers for them to get a green card. But sometimes, there are certain categories where these are not barriers. That's the easiest way of explaining it. Being an immigration lawyer is not easy. Doing this type of work is really complicated. The book that we use, so the immigration laws, the book, the INA, the Immigration and Nationality Act, it is literally this big. I haven't read every page. I'll never read every page, but I'm somewhat familiar with it. And it's just very complex work. So again, as I said earlier, don't ever assume, always ask. So if you are a U.S. citizen, we talked about the right to vote, which is, being a U.S. citizen is the full exercise of your civil rights and civil liberties, the most protection under the Constitution. This is the highest attainment. This is the path where we want to put lawful permanent residents. This is the path that people who have DACA or undocumented, they want to get on because, it's the full protection of the law. Yes, you can vote. Yes, you can run for public office, but it is full protection of your rights. And this is another privilege of being a U.S. citizen. You can sponsor more relatives in different categories. So if I'm 21 years or older, I can bring over my parents. I can petition for my parents, and I can also petition for my siblings. My mom and dad don't have to be married to each other for me to petition for them because I petition for them separately. It's independent. There's a burden of proof for each, but I can petition my parents. My siblings could be married or unmarried, so that's really cool. It does take a really long time, depending on the country. I won't tell you how long, but it is a really long time, so you have to be patient. Parents are a little faster, or way faster, let's be honest, they're way faster. If I'm married, I can bring over my spouse, only one at a time. Husband number 2 will have to wait back home. No, I'm kidding, just one spouse. If there is another spouse, that other spouse doesn't really count. But yeah, the spouse can come. I can bring my spouse over. And if I'm a U.S. citizen, I can bring my children, whether they're minors, whether they're adults, whether they're married, whether they're unmarried. There's more flexibility in the law. The time that it will take will depend on their age and marital status. Immigration isn't fast. It's not a fast game. It is a slow game. It is a game of waiting. It's a waiting game. But eventually, everyone's visa number will come, and you will be able to come, and you will be able to get a green card, and you'll be on the path to citizenship. It's a waiting game. So if I'm a lawful permanent resident, right, that's good too. That's a good thing. And everyone we're going to meet on June 30th will be an LPR. They have, remember, they can't vote, they can't run for office. They're still removable, they're still deportable based on certain, if they commit certain activities, certain transgressions. So it's a good status, but it's not the ultimate status that we're hoping and attaining for. But you can still petition for certain family members. Spouses, again, one at a time, so take a number if there are multiple spouses. And children who are unmarried of any age. So my 5-year-old son can come, and my 31-year-old unmarried daughter can come. But my 21-year-old married son cannot come. So the children have to be unmarried and single. Unmarried of any age, because unmarried and single are the same thing. Different immigration statuses. And now it's when it gets like, you're like, wait, I thought there was just US citizens and LPRs. Yeah, there are, but that LPR got their green card somehow. And these are some of the categories. Protection from persecution is basically me saying asylees or refugees. They've fled their country of origin. They're seeking protection from this country based on one of 5 grounds: race, religion, national origin, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. What does that mean? That's why we have the courts, because the courts have figured that out for us. And it's a very long list, and it's not an exclusive list. There's a lot of information about that. Another way of getting a green card is through domestic violence, victims of domestic violence, spousal abuse, male or female, temporary protected status, will lead to a green card. West of the Mississippi, tons of really cool stuff online, and you can read about that, and we're fighting that here on the East Coast. Visitors and non-immigrant statuses could be temporary stays, sometimes for employment, sometimes for pleasure, that you come to this country. DACA, as I've mentioned, it's a special program for for kids who came here as minors and have completed at least high school. That was started by President Obama 6 years ago. People without immigration status, as I said, they're undocumented. They came here with visas, but they've overstayed their visas, and they may have entered through the border without inspection. And that brings us to our last case study. So panel's ready, panel's ready. Remember, we're batting 1,000. We're 1 for 1. So Lila had her green card since 1996. She wants to apply to become a citizen. She mentions she has several criminal arrests, but that they are no big deal. So what do we tell her? Do we tell her, no worries, the arrests are no big deal, you should be fine to naturalize? Or do we say, get certified copies of your criminal record, and do we refer her to an authorized provider? Anyone? Does anyone have any idea? Anything? We're going to stay with this one, right? Right? Okay. Yes. You guys are 2 for 2. Awesome. Yes, there is no such thing as no big deal. Every arrest, every contact with the law is important. Some of them may not be, but that's not their decision to make. That's yours. That's the supervisor. Let them review that. The guy that I was telling you was telling me a really long story, and it took him forever to get to his point. Yeah, it was about an arrest that happened 14 years ago, where he was driving someone, a couple, the same way for 3 weeks in a row, and they stopped him. The state police stopped him because it was the same route, blah, blah, blah. I'll let your imaginations carry you why he would be carrying a couple same way 3 weeks in a row. Yeah, and so he said it was no big deal. And I said, no, kind of is, because he paid a fine of $1,000. He had it's like a whole bunch of stuff. And I said, you know what, maybe today is not the right day for you. We're going to talk about this some other time in a more comfortable setting where we really can dig deep into this. And that was fine, and that was okay. And that's my job, and that's your job. And that brings me to the end of the presentation. Thank you so much. And I'll be back later. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. So after the first presentation, if you guys have any questions, please write them down. Hold up your card, and a staff member will come and collect them. For those who are viewing online, you can send the questions via our Facebook page at Citizenship Now or Twitter at CUNY Citizenship, and use the hashtag Citizenship Now. Now is a great time to have all of your questions answered. I'm going to introduce to you our next speaker. She's going to be talking about citizenship and naturalization specifically. This is our bread and butter. This is the most important piece of information for the day. We're going to be going through the form, we're going to be talking about the event, and everything you need to know for later on is going to be right now. No pressure, Luz. Luz Medrano is the supervising attorney at the Hostos Community College Immigration Center, and she is one of Citizenship Now's leading authorities on naturalization law. So listen very carefully. She is a graduate of the CUNY School of Law, and she is a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Here is Luz.
Okay, no pressure. I'm always weary of giving the presentation right before lunch because everybody's like yawning and tired, but it's so cold in here that hopefully everybody's still awake. Okay, good. I can't even take my sweater off. I'm so cold. So, you know, this is going to be a general overview because we are going to go step by step on the form later on. And if you guys were here last year, we did the same thing. So I see a lot of familiar faces, so welcome back. You know, we're going to do naturalization and citizenship, and those two are two different things. Naturalization is the process by which a U.S. citizen, by which U.S. citizenship is granted to a foreign national, and then citizenship is something that either you get because you're born here, or maybe one of your parents became a citizen before you turned 18, and that's how you got it. So we're going to do some issue spotting. We're going to look at the general requirements and a few things. So who can become a citizen? Paula touched on this, right? So at birth, most people who are born here are U.S. citizens. I always like to point out that if you are born to a diplomat here, you're born a permanent resident. It's a little kind of unknown little part of the law. It's kind of funny, right? So diplomats are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, and so their children are not born under the jurisdiction of the United States. But pretty much anyone else is born a U.S. citizen. And of course, there's people who are born abroad, but born abroad to U.S. citizens who are also born U.S. citizens. And that born U.S. citizen is important because you could be president of the United States one day if you're born a U.S. citizen. So after birth, you can also become a citizen, and usually that's people who are applying for naturalization, as they will be on the day of the event on June 30th. That's the majority of the people you'll be assisting that day. And the other kind of people are permanent resident children whose parents might be going to you on that day. They will benefit if their parents become citizens before they turn 18 and they're already living in the country as green card holders. So it's a great benefit to those children as well. Okay. We've talked about the benefits of citizenship. It seems maybe in our climate today, it seems even more important, right? So we get to participate in civic life. We get to vote. We get to run for office. Again, you get to be president if you're a natural-born citizen. Certain government jobs are only for U.S. citizens. You can apply for other relatives, as Paula mentioned, married, children, siblings, and parents, which permanent residents cannot apply for. You can maintain maximum public benefits. SSI is limited, how many years a permanent resident can get it, things like that. But I think the main benefit of citizenship is that as a permanent resident, you can still be deported, right? As a citizen, you cannot be deported. Okay, they would have to put you in denaturalization proceedings first, denaturalize you and all those things. But in general, as a U.S. citizen, you cannot be deported. And I think definitely in this climate that we're in, that's one of the best benefits. Right, and a lot of people are often like, I don't do anything bad. I'm a stand-up individual, and it doesn't matter. There's always a situation that can happen. Bad stuff happens to good people all the time, and just because you have a crime doesn't make you a bad person. All of those things. You're going to be meeting with a ton of people. With life's, you know, life takes you up and down, and so it's important to keep that in mind. The naturalization procedure is as easy as this flow chart, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. See how easy it is? You just meet the eligibility requirements, complete and file the form, have your fingerprints taken, pass the interview, and take the oath. Good. Why are we here today? If it's so easy, right? So you have to make sure people are eligible. It seems like a pretty simple form. Now it's 20 pages. It used to be 10. You know, most people, if you can fill out an address, you know how to fill it out. But there are things that matter. There are things that could make them not only ineligible for citizenship, so if they're paying the fee, their money is gone. And I don't know about you, but $725 is a lot of money to say, happy birthday, immigration. But in general, you just want to, understand that it seems like it could be something easy. And for many people, it will be. And that's why we can do this kind of event. But we always have like the kind of paddle to make sure we're asking questions and make sure that we're at least aware of what red flags could appear, right? So to naturalize, you have to be a permanent resident. You cannot have any of these other statuses. So if you have TPS, no, you cannot become a citizen. If you have DACA, no, you cannot become a citizen. You must be a permanent resident. You have to be a permanent resident for at least 5 years. Doesn't say it here. We'll get to those requirements in a minute. You have to be at least 18 years old. You have to establish continuous residence and physical presence, two similar but distinct requirements. You have to have good moral character, and it's such an ambiguous term, right? But we'll get into it. You have to speak, read. Does anybody read English? I don't. You have to speak, write, and read basic English. Clearly, I need a lesson. You have to pass a test on U.S. history and governments and be willing to take the oath of allegiance. So all of these things have to happen. And we're going to get into each of them. Here's that great green card. It's not the newest one. I wanted to show you the new one, but they said we might lose the PowerPoint. Sad technology. So most of you will be seeing some kind of version of a green card. The screeners at the event will be the ones figuring out what category the person entered on and what that means, right? So if you're in application assistance, you won't be making that initial determination. Oh, you're RE8, you must have entered as a refugee, but I see that you were here for years before, blah, blah. That's not your concern, that's not your worry, unless you are a screener, in which case it is. I believe that most of you will be doing application assistance if you haven't done it before, if you haven't done this type of thing before. So permanent resident is a green card holder, is an alien card holder, is a lawful permanent resident. All those things are the same thing. And they have the right to live and work here permanently. Like I said, it's not the same as a non-immigrant status because they can live here and work here. They can travel outside the US, right? They can be removed. We spoke about that, meaning deported. We use technical terms here. And they can't take part in federal elections. That's one of the most important reasons why they want to become citizens. And there are limits on how much time they can spend abroad. Once you're a citizen, you can spend as much time away as you want, as long as you pay your taxes. And as a green card holder, you do have to come back every 6 months type of deal. Okay. So our first case study, you have your paddles, right? We want to keep you awake. We haven't talked about this, but it's going to come up. So, must Min Jun renew his green card in order to apply for naturalization? Min Jun obtained his green card through his sister in 2005. He's never traveled outside the U.S. His green card expired in 2015. He never applied to renew it. He is otherwise eligible to apply for naturalization. So, must Min Jun renew his green card in order to apply for naturalization? Yes. Whoops. Yes, because he can't prove he's a permanent resident if his card is expired, or no, because he's still a permanent resident even with an expired green card. Very good. It's a mix of... So the question mark has it. No, he does not need to renew his green card. There's no requirement that you renew your green card, even though immigration is getting a little stricter about this lately. There is no requirement that you renew your green card. You remain a green card holder even if your green card is expired. Caveat, if it's a 2-year green card, you're no longer a green card holder if it's expired. Okay? We're talking about 10-year green cards. We're talking about those ones that never expire. So your status as a permanent resident does not expire. The card might be expired, but your status doesn't. So what we've seen lately, right, is that immigration is getting a little pickier about this, and they're wanting folks to have valid documents when they go into their interview. In New York, in the New York district, we have not heard that anyone has been turned away from getting their citizenship because they had an expired green card. However, what we are recommending most people do is that they renew their green card in addition to applying for citizenship if they want proof of their status. If they are concerned about it, you know, they should renew it, particularly if they're applying with a fee waiver, because they don't have to, you know, submit 2 separate fees. However, if you have to pay the fee and you have to pay $540 and $725, if you're filing in New York, I'd probably recommend you just do the citizenship, okay? This is important because we may not just be helping people from New York on the 30th. There may be people from New Jersey, there may be people from Connecticut, from Pennsylvania. Sometimes people come from other jurisdictions, and you just want to have that in mind. Okay, so naturalization requirements. Important concepts about residence here and presence here, right? So there's the 5-year rule. You have to be a green card holder for 5 years before you apply for citizenship. There's always you can always apply 90 days before, okay? So 4 years and 9 months. Usually on our screening tools, we'll have either a date or on a paper, we'll have the date that the person had to have become a resident by in order to be applying for citizenship on the 30th. We're very helpful that way. There's also the 3-year rule. So you can apply for citizenship if you have your green card for 3 years, if you're married to and living with a US citizen for that period of 3 years. And again, those people can apply 90 days before. When they go into their interview, they do have to provide proof of the marriage, proof that they're commingling their assets, all of those things. So usually that's like joint taxes, joint lease, things like that. So continuous residence can be broken by absences of more than 6 months. So this will come up when you're filling out the applications because you guys are looking at their trips. You guys are actually looking at the passports, going through the passport one by one, and helping them figure out. So there are some people that travel very close to 6 months, but the rule is 6 months, it's 180 days. If they spend more than 180 days out, you always want to ask them, you know, why were you out? Do you have proof of what you did there? You know, you had an accident 2 weeks before you were supposed to leave, and the doctor said you couldn't leave for another 2 months. That's great proof, right? Your intention wasn't to break your continuous residence. So just talking through with people some of the facts of their case. Somebody who's left for over a year has broken their continuous residence. Like these people can apply 4 years and 1 day after that major trip. Okay. Some people, if they travel for a year, they travel with permission, that's great. But that permission still doesn't allow them to apply just because they got the permission. What the permission does is say, okay, we know that you didn't abandon your green card because you requested this permission. Okay. Oddly enough, somebody who's only spent the 6 months out has to wait 5 years. It's a weird caveat in the law. These, hopefully, if those come up for you, you want to always ask your supervisor. Make sure that you're going through the dates because, like I said, you guys are going to get into the nitty-gritty of actually writing down the dates, which is something the screeners don't always get into. Okay. As well as continuously residing in the U.S., you also have to be physically present in the U.S. for at least the last of the either 5 or 3 year period, right? And so if you've taken 2-month trips in increments and really have only lived here for 2 months at a time, you don't meet the physical presence requirement. If your total days outside of the U.S. in the last 5 years is over 913, you don't qualify under the physical presence requirement. Okay. All right, so first case study. Second case study. Should Bakri apply for naturalization? Bakri obtained his LPR status through his daughter on April 16th, 2013. His passport shows he visited his home country from April 1st, 2014 through May 1st, 2015. Since then, he has not taken any trips outside the United States. So should Bakri apply for naturalization now? Yes or no? This is more clear. You guys got it. So no. Oops. So let's go back because I have to look at the date. So he would have to wait 4 years and 1 day from when he returned. So he'd be able to apply May 2nd, 2019, right? Because he returned May 1st, 2015. Somebody who travels for a year has to wait 4 years and 1 day. Yes, no, food, lunch, no, nothing? Okay. All right, okay. Next question. What if Bakri does not have his passport with him that day? So same fact pattern, but Bakri does not have his passport with him today. He states that he did not take a trip longer than 1 year, though he cannot give you specific dates. He knows he spent more than 6 months out. What if Bakri does not have his passport with him? Can we assist him with his application? Yes, his memory is fine, and he'll plug in the correct dates when he gets home. Or no, we absolutely need to see everyone's passport before assisting them. Okay, let's see. Haha, nobody was right. That was fun. That was so much fun. The answer is it depends. And that's kind of the frustrating thing about being an attorney and having to help participants out on that day is that one answer may apply for one person, one answer may not apply for the other person, because each person has a different level of education, of experience, of sophistication, of help at home. So this answer may be frustrating, but it will be your motto on the day of the event. Many diverse applicants attend our events. That means that not one answer will fit every participant. Whether we can continue to assist will depend on the level of know-how and assistance each participant has. It is a very individualized thing, even though it's a mass event, right? For example, Bakri may be present with his very astute 14-year-old daughter who will be able to help him check his passport at home. Other participants may need to be given instructions on how to receive more individualized services at our immigration centers. We do have follow-up appointments available at our immigration centers. If this is someone you feel needs a more individualized attention, you know, a more individual appointment, then you can refer them out. Okay? There's no pressure for you to do every single case. There's no pressure for you to finish and win a prize, right? It's about making sure that they're getting the best quality service and that we're taking the time to really flesh their issues out. Because in a mass event, there's a tendency to be like, yes, yes, you qualify. Yes, you did 5 years, you got it, you know. And you don't want to get kind of bogged down by that. Okay. Good moral character, another fun part of naturalization. So you have to demonstrate good moral character in the statutory period. So that's either going to be the 5 years or the 3-year period, depending on how you're applying. People have gotten arrested at oath ceremonies before, probably an arrest that happened after their interview and then in between the period. Good moral character is not just about arrests and convictions. It is about what kind of person are you? Do you pay your taxes? Because good moral character people pay their taxes. Do you pay child support if you have children who don't live with you? And this is moms and dads. I mean, people are startled when I'll ask a mom and her child is in Burkina Faso and I go, okay, do you send money to that child? And she's like, they're with my family. And I'm like, yeah, well, you know, immigration still wants to see that you're responsible for your child, whether you are a woman or a man or, you know, in between. There's also selective service, which is a good moral character requirement, not as pressing as it was before, but definitely you want to be, for men between 26 and 31, that's kind of the age that you want to stick out for selective service. If a man is between the ages of 26 and 31 and he did not register, well then he might not have good moral character for the last 5 years. The requirement is that you have to, if you're a male between the ages of 18 and 25, register with selective service, right? So if you're 26 coming to me saying that you want to apply for citizenship, and yeah, you knew about that requirement and you didn't do it, well then, I don't think you qualify that day. I don't think you have good moral character. You didn't register with selective service and you knew you had to register. There's a lot of people who say they didn't know. And that's kind of a question that you're going to want to speak with a supervisor about. And again, it'll depend on the facts of the case. Okay? Parking tickets, disorderly conduct, and fines are generally not a problem, but if you've gotten MTA tickets and you get 10 a year for the last 3 years, you know, exactly, everybody laughed, okay? It's a pattern, they can see things. One of them is not gonna make you get denied, but if they see, wow, you really just don't like to pay your fare 30 times every year, or 30 times in the last 3 years. And then there are some things that bar you from applying for citizenship right now. There are some things that bar you for applying for citizenship forever. And then there are some things that make you deportable. And usually the screeners at the events will be responsible for looking at any dispositions, all of the criminal documents, all of those papers. But what happens also is that, mass events are kind of startling for volunteers, but also for participants. So when a participant first sits down with a screener, who's usually an attorney or an accredited rep or someone like that, the screener almost immediately is like, hi, yeah, my name is Luz, nice to meet you. Have you ever been arrested? Ever gotten a ticket? Ever, right? Like, so you may not want to share that information in the first 2 minutes of meeting with someone. So we find that a lot of people, after they've been asked the question like 3 or 4 times, is then their answer changes to, well, there was that one time, right? And so it's very important, even though the screeners asked, you want to ask every question, you want to get down to it, and listen to cues, right? I've been going through an application, and I'll just be going through, oh, ever been arrested, ever gotten a ticket, ever been a prostitute, ever been a, and then they're like, oh, well, they're, And I'm like, uh-oh, which one was that for? I'm like, you said, right? So it's very, I love the events. If you love talking to people, it's great. And it's about really having an individual conversation, but I'm saying like in a huge mass event is really unique. So don't worry about these. Hopefully the screeners will have caught these. If somebody comes to you with something, you raise your paddle and say, I need help. Please, somebody come. I can't handle this right now, okay? Good moral character continued. We talk about taxes, selective service, child support, voting. Only U.S. citizens can vote. So we do ask at screening if somebody's ever voted. But again, this may be something that they're kind of afraid to say and may say to somebody they feel more comfortable with, okay? Then we get to English language and U.S. history and civics. So this one's fun. Most applicants have to show proficiency in English and U.S. civics, right? So during their naturalization interview, they're asked from a list of 100 questions. They can be asked around 10 questions, and they should answer 6 correctly. So if they're asked 6 questions, they answer those 6 correctly, they've passed. The English language requirement, they're being tested on that from the minute they come in, because the entire interview is in English. There are people who believe that God will help them pass the English test, and maybe he will, maybe he, she, goddess, whoever will, and it's our kind of policy that, if somebody believes that they can pass and they say that they're going to study, that we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt and help them through with it. And again, this is it depends, right? So I wouldn't put some 95-year-old elderly, 95 is pretty elderly person through something if they can't even sit through the mass event, right? If they're having a problem just sitting at a mass event, how are they going to sit at a citizenship interview? How are they going to sit waiting for things to happen? So again, it's a lot of figuring out, is this person able to do it? And there are some people that are 80 years old and they are right up there with the 40-year-olds and like, yep, I'm going to do it, no problem, I'm going to get it done. Again, you're going to notice, because once you have more than one person, you see the difference, right? Some people know every single date of birth of every single family member they've ever had. Other people don't know where they were living yesterday. You guys know, the experts here, our expert volunteers know that that's the truth. There are, of course, exemptions for the language. There are exemptions for the language requirement, and those exemptions are very coveted. People really want to know about them. You have to have not only age, but years as a green card holder, and that's a very confusing concept for a lot of participants. They feel if they are of a certain age that they should qualify automatically to take it in their language. They also feel if they have been here for a certain number of years, they qualify. So an example, a 48-year-old man calls, says, I've been here for 30 years. That's great, good for you. Do you know English? No, why can't I take it in Spanish? Well, you're not 50 yet, right? So you've been here for 30 years, yay, you qualify under one of the prongs, but not both, and it requires both. And then there's another exemption for somebody who's an even older person and been here longer also. So if you're over 65 years old and have had your green card for 20 years, you qualify to study from the list of 20 questions. So that's great. It's kind of the easier questions. Where's the White House? What color is the White House? No, I'm just kidding. They don't ask what color the White House is. That'd be kind of funny. It's orange right now. I'm just saying. Okay, yay, everybody's awake. Okay, yes, I love it. Okay, you know, while you're filling out the form, one of the most important parts, and I believe one of the most passed by parts, is the questions at the very end that ask you about the oath of allegiance. So after you've gotten all this personal information about someone, like, oh, you had a kid with this one while you were married to this one? Oh. And you were living with this one. Interesting. I see. After you get through all of that personal stuff, then you have to ask them about whether they really want to be a citizen. And I think it's very important. You can flip to the last page of the application. You have the materials, you know, with you anyways. You can flip to the last page of the actual citizenship application, and it says oath of allegiance, you know, and as I hereby declare on oath and blah, blah, blah. And that's the whole point of it. So one of the first questions is, do you support the Constitution and the form of government that we have in the United States? And I take great pride in teaching possible new citizens about our foundations and about what this country is supposed to be, that we have separate branches of government that are supposed to check and balance each other, right? That not one person is the king, even though people may believe so, right? And so it's very important. I think that because we're a pro se project, I love to educate people and empower them and let them know this is what we're saying. Our country is dedicated to these principles. And I love this country. You know, my parents came from another place, and I do think that those are our principles. I also saw Hamilton, so I'm very, you know, like, yes, founding fathers. But, you know, I do think it's important to stress that part and to look at it and to make a big deal about it, because a lot of people are like, well, what should I answer? Should I answer yes? And it's like, well, if you answer no, then we have to write an explanation. That's the lawyer way to answer that question. So anyways, go through the oath of allegiance. There are some exceptions, you know, for people who have strongly held religious beliefs or moral objections, but they do need to include an explanation. All right? So we're going to talk very briefly about derivation of citizenship. That was naturalization. See how quick and easy? Derivation of citizenship happens when a child is born outside the U.S. It's weird. There's derivation and acquisition, and I never get them correct. But basically, someone born abroad to U.S. citizen parents can be a citizen. And someone who's entered the U.S. and their parents became citizens after they entered the U.S. and they're still under 18 can also become a citizen. And so on the application, there's questions about, is your mother a citizen? Is your father a citizen? And that's why they're asking those questions. They're trying to figure out, did this permanent resident get their citizenship already through their parent? And the best way to you know, if you think the screener didn't get to that answer or may have overlooked that, the best way to look is, did the person get their green card before they were 18? Because if they didn't, then they didn't get it through their parents, okay? They had to have their green card while they were under 18. So you'll be going through their application. It might say their parents is a citizen, but they got their green card when they were 30. So no, they didn't derive, okay? So under the current law, and the law does change, this is the law since 2001, you have to be unmarried, under 18, a lawful permanent resident, residing in the U.S. in the legal and physical custody of a U.S. citizen parent. okay? When all the qualifying events take place, the child automatically derives the U.S. citizenship. And it happens by operation of law. And it happens whether one happened before the other, but it all has to happen before 18. Even if you never get proof of it, if all of those things happened before you were 18, you're still a citizen by operation of law, except that you should probably get some kind of documentation just because of how things are, right? And so that person can apply for a U.S. passport, or they can apply for a certificate of citizenship, an N-600. And that one is a certificate of citizenship, not a certificate of naturalization, which is what people will be getting after they come to our mass event and become citizens. They'll get a certificate of naturalization. For children born out of wedlock, the mother must be the one who's a U.S. citizen, or if the father's the U.S. citizen, the child must be legitimate. And the father must legitimate the child before the child's 16th birthday. Again, these aren't things that you guys will have to worry about on that day. If you have any questions about it, please just raise your paddle and ask us. We have charts, we have all kinds of materials available, but this kind of person might need a follow-up appointment at our immigration centers to really determine, okay, let's see, do you have the documents that you need in order to do it? So we're gonna do a case study because we've done 2 slides on it, so you guys are experts. Altagracia was born in 2003 in the Dominican Republic. Her parents were never married to each other. Her mother entered the U.S. as a permanent resident on June 5, 2006, and petitioned Altagracia sometime after. Altagracia became a permanent resident on August 2, 2010, when she came to live in the U.S. with her mother. In 2012, her mother became a U.S. citizen. So did Altagracia derive U.S. citizenship? Yes. Altagracia derived in 2012 when her mother naturalized. No, she did not derive because she was not legitimate at birth. Okay. Most of you were correct. It is yes. She was getting it through her mother. Remember, through her mother, if you're born out of wedlock, it's your mom, so it's kind of guaranteed. She was born in 2003. That means in 2012 she was 9. Am I doing mine right? So she was under 18. She had entered the U.S. with her green card, and her mother naturalized before she became a citizen, okay? An acquisition of citizenship is if you are now a citizen and you go abroad and you live abroad and you have a child, your child may become a citizen depending on residence requirements that immigration has. And we have those charts in the screening tables. If you have any questions about that, you can always ask. And I'm finally warm enough to take this. And just extras. Okay, and then we have resources. We will have, you know, all kinds of materials available for you on the day of the event. We have a great website with a lot of resources on there. We have people like myself there, like other volunteers who are lawyers who are more than willing to chat it up and talk with you, you know. But I think one of the most important things to take from this is you're not going to have all the answers, and that's okay. And you're going to raise your paddle if you have any questions. And not one answer will be the answer for everyone. Okay? And I think that's it. Thank you, guys.
And we're going to try to keep the questions on the morning topics, but we'll get to as many as possible, okay? Monique?
Alrighty. New York did not require that an LPR have a valid card at the time that they apply for citizenship. Can you clarify who needs to renew and who does not?
So I knew this would be a tricky thing to tell folks. It depends. I know that's a frustrating answer. Most people, if they want, if they're trying to apply for a new job, if they are receiving public benefits and public benefits is requiring it of them, if at their current job they require constant proof of status, then that person should renew their green card. What we're saying is that for naturalization purposes, it's okay if the green card is expired for naturalization purposes. However, if you still need proof that you're a green card holder, you should absolutely get proof that you're a green card holder, right? We help a variety of participants, some who may not have the money to spend $540 and another $725. So that person, we're going to advise, apply for citizenship.
I am a U.S. citizen since 1978. How long can I stay in another country? And if I decide to live in a foreign country, will I lose my citizenship?
I can answer. So if you're a U.S. citizen, we didn't talk about that, I guess, right? But you can stay out as long as you want, and you won't lose your citizenship. So that's an awesome protection.
What are some of the reasons why an LPR cannot naturalize?
Someone may have taken a trip that, means that they don't have the physical presence requirement. Someone may have committed a crime which makes them inadmissible for the 5-year period, like for the statutory period, but after it passes the 5 years, they should be able to apply. Someone who may have entered under a status that they weren't eligible to enter under. So one of the very common situations is that permanent residents can only file for unmarried children. You meet with someone, you determine that a permanent resident parent filed for them, and you notice that they got married in their country before they actually got their green card, like before the date on their green card. So the date on their green card is June 5th, 2018, and they were married in DR May 30th, 2018. They're like, I did it after my immigrant visa. Well, that person entered as a married son of a permanent resident, and there is no category for that. And so they were ineligible at the time of entry. So just a few examples. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so citizenship it's a discretionary benefit. So there are the eligibility criteria that Luz mentioned, but that's why they also have the interview, so that the officer can go through every single eligibility criteria and make sure that that completely the person is eligible. So it would be really hard to give a long list of reasons, except that there may be many reasons, or just one reason that person is. But all those different eligibility criteria, if they're not met, could be a reason.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the answer is it depends.
Yes.
That's everyone's mantra for the rest of the day and going forward. It always depends, and that's why it's good to check in with the supervisor to review each person's individual case and to make sure that we're giving a person a second to pause and really answer their question. You have another one, Monique?
So if only LPRs can apply for citizenship, what is the path to citizenship for DACA recipients and TPS?
You want to take that one?
How much time do we have? So TPS, by its name, is temporary protected status. It's a temporary status. So if so directly from TPS, just because you have TPS, you can't go to anything else. But, which is why I said Google some really cool litigation going on right now. If you're west of the Mississippi, so in the western states, there have been court decisions that said that if you have TPS status and if a U.S. citizen spouse is petitioning for you, just having TPS status will make you eligible to apply for a green card. Because of the way the federal courts work, it's only west of the Mississippi. It's not here on the East Coast, not yet, but they're litigating it, which will be fascinating if we can pass it. It's the same thing with DACA. DACA in and of itself does not get you a green card. If you have DACA 10 years, it doesn't mean you have a green card. You need legislation for that to make it happen directly from that. That's what a lot of people are fighting for. But then there are other ways. If you are a U.S. citizen, spouse, and my husband is DACA, documented, and he had one legal entry back into the U.S. on advanced parole trip, some CUNY students were able to do that a while back, then he would be able to apply for a green card here. As I said before, that's what makes immigration law so fascinating, confusing, interesting, because there are just so many ways, and you have to learn how to maneuver, and sometimes there is no direct route. Sometimes there are a whole bunch of indirect routes. It depends. There, that's the answer.
Hashtag it depends.
Yeah. Can someone who derived citizenship and obtain a U.S. passport vote without a certificate of citizenship?
Yeah, a U.S. passport is proof of U.S. citizenship, so absolutely.
Yeah. The only time I would ever suggest someone, and I don't know if you've had the same experience, Luz, is with Social Security, because they do, until now, State Department doesn't let them know that you're a U.S. citizen. So
Right.
you have to take the certificate of citizenship to update it, because they get their updates from USCIS. That's that crazy stuff where there are all these federal agencies and they don't talk to each other yet. So that's why.
I had a girl call me last week, and she's like, I came in and I was a citizen. My mom did it, and now Social Security won't. That's why.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you need your citizenship certificate. Sorry.
This one's a derivative citizenship, a question on documentation. If a child is born out of the U.S., parents gain citizenship before the child turned 18. When does that child get documentation of citizenship? The child is born outside.
Can you repeat the question?
The child is born outside of the U.S. The parents become U.S. citizen. When does that child get the documentation of their citizenship?
So I'm going to talk about two different scenarios, because one is a child is born abroad to U.S. citizen parents, and I don't think that that's the question. No. Okay, so scrap that. So this child was born abroad, and his or her parents became citizens. The parents have to file a petition for the child to come into the U.S., and then the day they enter the U.S., they will automatically become a citizen, and sparkles and stuff when they come into the U.S. I don't know about the sparkles, but yeah.
The national anthem just plays.
Right. It happens by operation of law. However, you do need to get documentation of it, and by operation of law means poof, it happens magically, but you still need to get proof of it to.
And the proof is?
The certificate of citizenship or U.S. passport.
If the applicant is not willing to bear arms, should he write an explanation?
I mean, I've had that. For me, it's come across with people. Jehovah's Witnesses, they're the ones who, adhere to their faith and have strongly held beliefs about that. And I've had someone recently, he brought a letter from his...
Kingdom Hall.
Yeah. Say it again?
Kingdom Hall.
Kingdom Hall, thank you. And it was on letterhead and explained, it was a letter from the local person, and it had the tenets of the religion and specific scripture passages, and where it says that, you don't have a right to bear arms, and we put that explanation with the citizenship application.
And just to highlight what Paul is saying, this is not something that you need when you file the form. You can check off the particular box that indicates that you, you can answer no to the question. And what we're talking about is at the interview, at that stage of the process, somebody can, take the time to gather the letter for that part of the process. You don't need it in the beginning when you apply, because a lot of people often don't realize, I didn't bring it to the event, or, I didn't know that I could get that. I've just heard from, people that there's some process. So just to clarify that point for people.
If someone has a child support order, they're abiding by the order, do they need written documentations from the court to submit with their application?
So I don't think that somebody needs to submit with their application, but they should take proof of that to their interview. Just like somebody who owes taxes and is paying according to a payment plan, that person should take proof that they're in the payment plan and they've been making some payments. So just because something has happened in your situation doesn't mean it's detrimental. You just have to take proof of it.
Yeah. Remember that the application does not get approved upon submission, doesn't you, right? They just review it for basic, make sure that it has the check, it has the signatures. The application gets reviewed the day of the interview. That's where you have to take all your proof.
My brother has been a permanent resident for 30 years. He is 70 years old and does not know how to read or write at all. How can he pass the test?
So that's the benefit, and I didn't speak about that, is that for the language exemption requirements, it's for English language learners, it's for English speakers too, right? So as long as you meet the 50-20 or 55-15 requirements, then you don't have to take the English test. You can take the civics test and you just have to take it orally. So there's no English language requirement for any permanent resident who's over 50 and have 20 years, or over 55 and had 15 years. That means somebody who's illiterate can, even if they're an English speaker,
they can qualify under those exemptions. They'll just have to learn to study the civics question. So either orally, they can get a CD, they can go online, things like that. But yeah, it applies to anyone.
Yeah. There are great videos on YouTube that will repeat the questions, and you can study that way. CIS has the audio version online on their website. You can do it that way as well.
A family member could download an app. There's a lot of apps available as well.
A legitimation question. What does legitimation mean? Must the father take the steps to file the petition for custody of the child, and what is required?
Yeah, that's a great question that goes beyond the scope of this training. I love saying that too. Legitimation is a very complicated thing to define in just one sentence. And really it does go beyond what we'll be doing on that day. So there's a ton of materials online, and it's something that even we as attorneys struggle with, like, was this person legitimated or not? So it's not something that we're going to answer here.
Stop the lawyer.
Yeah, thanks.
This is a green card question. I need to renew my green card, but I can't afford the fee. I receive both Medicaid and food stamps. Can I renew my green card for free, and what is the process?
There are fee waivers, not for every immigration application, but there are fee waivers for citizenship and green card renewals. And one of the categories is means-tested public benefits. So if you're receiving Medicaid, SNAP, which is food stamps, Section 8 housing, cash assistance, SSI, you'll be able to qualify and get the fee waived. You just need current proof and a letter that doesn't, in the form of a letter, and that's not going to expire for another 6 months.
We have a section of the presentations in the afternoon that'll talk a little bit more about fee waivers, so you guys have a little bit of context for who is eligible and how the process works. So we'll learn more about that after lunch in the afternoon.
A citizen wants to petition for their mother who's in a legal status. Does the mother need to go back to the original country in order for her to get this petition?
So for a U.S. citizen to file for a parent, right, they're eligible to file for their parent so long as the U.S. citizen is over 21. Whether they can petition the parent, whether the parent can adjust status here in the U.S. depends on a lot of factors, mostly on how the parent entered the U.S., when the parent entered the U.S., and things like that. So it depends.
Hashtag it depends.
I'm going with that.
I married a U.S. citizen and got my green card through her. We never divorced or kept in contact, and now I live with another woman, and we have 2 kids together. I'm ready to apply for my citizenship. Will this be a problem?
That was my consultation yesterday.
Maybe he wants a second opinion. He didn't like your answer, maybe.
Maybe, Luz?
Oh, should I?
No, I mean, so this is my take on it. Feel free to give a different take on it. It's a complicated take, but if more than 5 years have passed, you're applying for citizenship based on your 5-year status, right? If you're within that 3-year mark, that 3 years married to a U.S. citizen, 3-year lawful permanent resident, I would advise you not to do it under that category, because then the good moral character comes into play, because you're living with someone else who's not your spouse and children that are not the spouses. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I think we would see how long time has passed. Like, you know, did you marry 20 years ago and now you're living with someone else, or did you marry 2 years ago and now you're living with someone else? And that's why it's like very individual. You have to look at every single person's like facts and apply it to kind of the law.
My mother has not paid her taxes while she had her green card because she worked off the books. Does she need to file taxes for the whole time period, like 15 years, or just for the last 5 years?
Murmur.
Tag team this.
Okay.
How would you like to start?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I have advised folks when you're at our events, right? I'm an attorney, You tell me you're working, so I have to write down you're working, right? That's how things work in my office. So a participant comes to me, they say, yeah, I'm a babysitter. Okay, oh, you're self-employed because you get paid off the books. Okay, no problem, self-employed, blah, blah, blah. Do you file taxes? They go, no. So then I have to advise them that I believe that they should file taxes at least for the last 5 years, is what I tell most people now. However, there is a question on the form that says, since becoming a permanent resident, have you ever failed to file a tax return? And I would also make that person answer yes to that and say, oh, I wasn't aware that I had to file, and as soon as I became aware, I started filing and things like that.
My first memory of Luz was at an event, and there was a woman who was self-employed, and she was asking, she asked the person, well, did you make over a certain amount of money? It's like there's a threshold every year. And the woman was just kept insisting she didn't have to file taxes, and Luz took care of that very quickly by saying, did you make this amount of money that year? The woman was quiet, thought about it. And then you got into the discussion about you have to pay your taxes. So yeah, most people do over a certain threshold, right? But we don't know that offhand. That's why you may have to make an appointment with us somewhere to another time.
Do you guys know offhand, is someone even able to file their taxes that far back? Is there a limit to how far back?
3 years. That's what I feel like most people can file is 3 years. But I'm always like, oh, you figure it out.
Complicated taxes.
Yes. Yeah. Tax law and immigration law are the two most complicated areas of law, so yeah.
If a child comes to the U.S. with their parents, gets their green card, then goes back to their country to finish school, has the child abandoned their permanent residence?
I hope not. You know, that's the truth and the reality for a lot of people, right? Because this process takes so long, sometimes you just can't time it perfectly. So sometimes people come here just to enter and get the stamp and be a lawful permanent resident, and they have to come and go for some years while they finish school abroad, or they finish raising the kids abroad, whatever the reason. It goes back to are you going to come out are you going to come back every 6 months, before the 6 months? If you're going to stay out 1 year or more, did you travel with a travel document, a reentry permit that allows you to be out for 2 years at a time, and then you're cool, and you can renew that reentry permit a few times, so you'll be fine that way. I've had people who've done the reentry permit. I've had people who don't do it and just travel in and out every 6 months. They time it just right. Until maybe like the 4th or 5th time, and then the CBP officer is like, hey, what's going on? How come you're doing all this travel? And then they tell them, you really have to figure this out. So hopefully not if they've traveled with permission, hopefully not if they've done it every 6 months. It may affect their citizenship, it probably will affect their citizenship, but hopefully not their lawful permanent resident status.
Yeah, and I would even add that if it's somebody who could derive, that getting your citizenship is way more important than like going to school for those 6 months. So I would recommend like wait, get your certificate of citizenship, and then go and be gone for as long as you want to, if that's a case of derivative citizenship.
I've been a citizen for over a year, and I adopted a child outside of the U.S. Could this child become a U.S. citizen?
Great question.
I know.
Adoption.
Yeah, no idea.
Very complicated.
Say it again? I'm sorry. I've been a citizen for
over a year.
For over a year.
I adopt a child from abroad. Can the child become a U.S. citizen?
Oh, yeah. Oh.
I mean, I'm sure you could petition the child.
So
we got the wheels turning.
Yeah.
Steam coming out.
It may be beyond the scope, but I mean, a U.S. adopted kids are allowed to derive under the Child Citizenship Act. So in that way, if I petition for my child and bring that child in as an immediate relative, you see the codes. These are the codes that I was talking about, the categories. As long as the child fulfilled, so I bring my child over on a family petition, the child is here, in my physical and legal custody automatically by the law.
Right. I mean, I know that so we don't do adoptions at our offices, so this is why I know very little, because it gets complicated and you want to make sure that the process happens the right way. I do know that the law before CCA, so before 2001, somebody was adopted. Her grandmother had adopted her. Her grandmother was a naturalized U.S. citizen, petitioned for her. Because she wasn't in the U.S. when her grandmother naturalized, she did not derive.
Oh, okay.
So that was before the new law took effect. So again, laws have different expiration dates. They might be valid for one time and for another. Something that might not be okay before 2001 is okay now. And so, yeah, that's definitely a way more complicated question. I don't even know, you know.
We have charts, really.
Yes.
We have charts, and we just have, we follow those charts. Yeah, that's how we do it.
Does work without authorization bar naturalization?
So people applying for naturalization are permanent residents, and permanent residents are authorized to work.
Probably, I would think maybe before they became a permanent resident.
So usually most things that you did before you became a permanent resident have been excused by immigration, and so it's not going to come back in your citizenship, unless, of course, it was something you didn't tell them about or something bad.
Sometimes we have to ask for the immigration file to see your entire immigration history, and that's okay. That's okay.
Alrighty. A question on taxes. So a person has back taxes that they owe, they're on a payment plan. Should they wait until the matter is resolved before applying for naturalization?
We don't
hear lots of...
We don't think so. As long as you have proof, right? Yeah. Just keep paying.
I see hands up, but...
By the time it gets to the point where they actually have their interview, they may be already paid up because it's been taking so long.
Yeah.
This friend, this is actually a true story happening right now. When he became a permanent resident, the lawyer for the government said you need to pay 10 years of back taxes. It's a pretty high burden.
Wow.
And he did it dutifully for as long as he could manage it, but has sought relief through a lawyer who does that, kind of thing. I'm not sure if I'm using the right terminology. So that's in process right now. He's not paying because it's, it's in pending. Should he wait?
That sounds like he's kind of litigating with the government about whether he, the
IRS,
how much he has to pay and all that. And so, that sounds like it's not resolved. But if he can show that he's made every effort since then, right? And
he can.
So, like, if he got his green card in deportation proceedings and they made him do 10 years, sounds like he had cancellation or something. Yep. So it's been 5 years since then. If he's filed the taxes the 5 years since then,
okay,
I would say that, that's a very positive factor in his case,
okay. Yeah, that's exactly the case. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm married to an undocumented immigrant. He was detained when first entered the U.S. by immigration. He was granted a work authorization for a month, and he was supposed to return to court, but he never did. It's been 11 years since. Does he still have a chance to obtain status through being married to me, a U.S. citizen?
Oh, these are such hard questions.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable answering that question in this forum. That definitely needs a more individualized case, and we would probably have to get records and all kinds of things to be able to
speak to the husband.
Yeah, obviously. Have an individualized appointment,
We have time for a few more questions before we break. If you have any more questions that we don't get to, you can hold them until the afternoon. We're going to have another Q&A session. Do you have any questions, Monique?
Yeah. Can I travel outside of the U.S. while applying for citizenship? My application is currently pending.
Is that another it depends, maybe because of any travel time beforehand?
Yeah.
Could be, yeah. That's a great point.
Yeah. So we saw someone yesterday, he had not the 913 days in the last 5 years, and I'm glad you pointed that out. It was like 867 days. So he's close, right? He's almost been out of the U.S. 2.5 years. So before we gave him the application to mail out, we advised him, you have been out almost 2.5 years. You really should stay here. Yeah.
Yeah, but in general, people can travel. there's no requirement that they stay here while the application is pending. So if they have some emergency, what I usually tell people is, don't go for too long, because if you get some kind of notice and you're not here, then, the application might be abandoned or anything like that. And yeah, and obviously if somebody's traveling and they have an expired green card, then they might get stuck in their home country. And so, there's a lot of factors and that's why it depends, right? Yeah.
One more question.
Okay. Can a preference category relative apply for a visitor's visa abroad while waiting for an immigrant visa to come to the U.S. permanently?
I mean, I've seen people do it and they get approved. And they could get denied too, but I've seen it get approved, so I don't know.
I think they look at the factors in the home country, whether the person has a good job that they're going back to, whether they still have family back in the home country, the factors they look at when they're giving you a visitor's visa. Yeah.
I think that is all of the questions we're going to take for now. We are going to have lunch, and the cookies that I mentioned may be there, I'm not sure. Oh, no cookies. Monica's a sad face. We will reconvene back in this room at 1:15.
All righty.
We're going to go to the second floor. We'll have staff members who can show you how to get there. Feel free to stop by the social media table on your way to lunch or on your way back. And we'll see you at 1:15.